These people are not typical demonstrators. It's taken something truly awful to bring them out on the streets of Boston. They say they were sexually abused as children by Roman Catholic priests, the very men they'd been taught by their parents would help them in times of trouble. Phil Saviano was a victim. As a young boy in a strongly religious Italian family, he was trusting but inquisitive.
The progression began with the card tricks, and then one day the deck of cards had pornographic pictures on them. And we thought it was weird, but being 11-year-old boys, we were curious about seeing what was in these pictures. It eventually degenerated into us two kids, sometimes together, sometimes alone, having sex with this priest.
Father David Hulley, the priest who abused Phil Saviano, was eventually sent to prison. Only a tiny minority of Roman Catholic clergymen in the United States are found guilty of such crimes. But because of their status, their fall from grace has been great and public. The problem has been made worse by the way in which church leaders have handled the issue.
And by having sex, what I mean is masturbating him, performing oral sex on him. In the sacristy, which is the room just outside of the altar. In the church basement, in the stairway leading down to the basement, in the rectory, a number of times in a number of locations. The thing about this priest was he was completely out of control.
After trying to cover up some
Father,
cases,
you are holy
U.S. church
indeed.
leaders agreed compensation, then retracted when they realized how many victims there were. It certainly surprised the cardinals and archbishops.
Please know that as long as I am in a position to do so, I will work tirelessly to address this crisis and to underscore its severity. This is a wake-up call for the church.
A new group has formed to make sure the church really does wake up.
Make me a channel of your peace.
But Voice of the Faithful activists acknowledged that even they were slow to act in the past.
And that it's time for us to accept the fact that we have some responsibility in all of this too. That for years we have not asked the questions that need to be asked, and we've not come forward to say we care enough about this church to stand by it, to stand with it, and try to help it heal.
Let us thank Him for our food. Amen. Thank you.
The Roman Catholic Church in the United States carries out many good works. A lot of them are associated with the development of children into caring and responsible adults.
Number 2. That's number 8.
Children like these were and are completely vulnerable to the priests they've been taught to trust. Embarrassment and fear kept victims quiet about their suffering. But since the whole issue has been highlighted,
John Geoghan,
the long-withheld
the
emotional
unburied
torment is pouring out.
So much for all the hard work and representation you have shown. I was abused at 11 by a priest. Shortly after, I remember being punished for something I did at home. While I was in my room crying, I got off my bed and I walked over to the crucifix hanging on the wall and spat on it.
Voice of the Faithful slogan says it all. Keep the faith, change the church.
Yet I say to Cardinal Law, with his
While Phil
sickening,
Saviano and others were
mellifluous
demonstrating
tone,
outside, a priest emerged from
the only
celebrating
ring
Mass to put the
that should
church's
be
point
about
of view.
your body.
Yeah, there's a lot of anger out there, and it's directed at anyone in a collar. But I can understand, as most clergy can understand, why people are angry. And all we can do is commit ourselves to doing everything that we can to help the victims and their families to recover and no longer be victims but survivors, to pledge to do everything that we can to make sure that this never happens again, and to just commit ourselves to the call that Jesus Christ called us to live the good life of the gospel.
To most of his parishioners, Father John Geoghan lived the good life of the gospel. He seemed to be an excellent priest. But when no one was looking, Father John was sexually abusing young boys. When some of the boys grew up, they hired a lawyer.
They're giving hollow apologies. And basically, after doing this for so many years, I believe that they just don't care. And as the Geoghan paper showed, which I've filed in court, all 10,000 pages, the clergy, the Catholic priests protect themselves, and they leave the victims out to dry.
Patrick McSorley was one of Father Geoghan's victims. Like many others, he's considering suing the church, not just for compensation, but to try to stir up the leaders into taking the best measures against such abuse happening again.
In other words, this guy's there's had to be something done about it.
The Roman Catholic Church is hierarchical, with the chain of command going back to the Vatican, which likes to know exactly what's going on. So US cardinals and archbishops went to the Holy See to discuss what had gone wrong and how to correct it. Critics say they're more intent on protecting the administration than fixing the problem.
It was all about secrecy. The pedophile priest would keep the matters secret. The Archdiocese of Boston told, and the other archdioceses kept the matters secret. And the Vatican has guidelines stating these matters, when looked into, shall be kept secret. And we all know that fosters more secrecy, which protects the pedophile and re-victimizes the victim.
Mitchell Garabidian is not alone in believing that church leaders made a bad problem worse. But this is Christianity. What of forgiveness? Should the activists stop talking about change or compensation and start showing some Christian mercy? By all accounts, Sister Iustinia, who's worked with the poor of Boston for more than 30 years, is a good person and a good Catholic. She has no doubts about what's needed most.
All these wonderful men have done great works, but they don't bring out the good work that they've done through the years, through it all. But that one mistake they made, they'll always remember it. That bad mistake that they made, you know. And that's what's very sad. They forgot all about the good, you know. I always say, he is without sin, let him throw the first stone. And I think we're forgetting how to forgive people. I think that we forgot. And I think if we're going to be happy, we have to give and we have to forgive.
Spokesperson for the Attorney General's office.
If this was just a case of the victims wanting revenge, then they'd probably receive far less support than they do. But given the priest's status, the nature of their crimes, and what many people perceive as an initial leadership cover-up, positive action has to be taken.
About a similar
if not, the church will suffer.
The big question is, if groups like Voice of the Faithful are not successful in achieving these goals, having a greater say in the way the church operates, are they going to continue to remain faithful, or are they going to break apart? Are they going to start withholding their donations, taking the next step in order to have a greater voice? I don't know.
These are the new priests of today, and possibly the church leaders of tomorrow. They were ordained soon after the scandal erupted, and are well aware of the pain it's caused not just individuals, but the Roman Catholic Church as a whole. Their first task as good shepherds will be to reunite the flock. But unless the current church leaders set the right example, that task may be beyond even the keenest and cleanest clerics. People of whatever faith are right to expect that their spiritual mentors are pure in thought and deed. Children have the right to be protected from abuse. Church leaders have the duty of ensuring both.